evening, class.
Good evening, sir.
Okay, we are here today to speak on the topic of reflective thinking as far as it affects competence in cultural competency. I'm going to give you a personal story so you could understand the position I'm coming from. At one time, I'm a missionary, and so I traveled to the United States years ago. I think it was in 1995. And then we were in a church, a small church in in Cleveland, Ohio. And one of the pastor actually in the morning asked for people in the morning service for people to give testimonies about, what God had done in their lives and all of that. But then there's a guy came up and said, it was in the evening service. He said, I could not come to church this morning because my cat could not allow me to come. And for me as an African, that blew me away. It was like, what? A cat cannot allow someone? But later on, now living in the States, I begin to understand, looking from the perspective of people from this culture, of how important, their pets are. Not that I don't think pets are important, but they are not that, a priority. So I begin to become probably culturally competent, and I say probably thinking reflectively. So at this time, we're gonna, by the time we get through with this lesson, you're gonna be able to list 5 elements of reflective thinking, elements of that. You're gonna describe 2 to 3 personal cultural beliefs and how to challenge them through reflective thinking. There are cultural beliefs that all of us have, and then you're going to provide one effective way of engaging someone from another culture through reflective thinking. Okay, so now we're going to just watch for 5 minutes, a 2-minute video talking about the importance of cultural, multicultural counseling. So I'm going to put this video on, and then we're going to discuss it.
Wrote a really amazing journal entry that really sort of indicated how she was transformed by the multicultural training that she was getting in our program. And she was working with some elementary school students, and they had gone to a concert, a program at a theater, and somehow the theater lost the list of the students from that class. And so they weren't allowing them to go in because they assumed that they had not registered ahead of time to be a part of this the school program. And so while they were waiting, the students, and they were predominantly black students, the students were sort of really complaining and angry and upset because they felt like that it was a racial thing, that they were not being allowed to go into the program because they were black. And my student's first reaction she described as being, oh no, it doesn't have anything to do with race. They really lost the list, and they'll find it and everything will be fine. And so she tried to sort of distract the students and sort of keep them busy so that they wouldn't be sort of upset. But she later thought about her reaction to the students, and it occurred to her, she was stunned by the fact that these elementary school kids were so aware and conscious of race at such a young age. And she wondered kind of why wasn't she? Why she wasn't aware more. And she began to question her reaction, in which she kind of she felt like she invalidated and really sort of questioned the students' reactions, the students' perception of the situation. And she began to sort of realize that whether or not their perception of the situation was accurate, it was important to validate their experience, because clearly they had enough experiences with racism that they were aware of the possibility that the situation was the result of racism as well. And so it was really a transformative experience for the student, for my student, because she began to really question her own perceptions and why she wasn't more aware of this possibility.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now is to begin to discuss it. So what do you think happened to this student, and what do you think that made her to think that these people were not really, doing anything like racist, because she probably, I think, was probably a white student and all of that, but then the students who were black, they knew that something was going on because they were thinking from their perspective. So what do you think?
Well, if the person who was, if I understood it, the teacher, were they white and they're not culturally aware, they don't know how black people feel in this culture.
That's true.
So they said that they didn't think it was racial because they don't have that awareness of what black people have, what black people perceive as racism in America. I think if the teacher was white person, now I was thinking, was the teacher white?
No, the teacher is the one that's just on the video.
Oh, okay, the
And
person who said
the
it.
person who brought the story to her, I
Okay.
believe was a student, probably a white student,
white,
who
okay,
had gone with
white
other
person.
black students
Okay.
to this event.
Okay, yeah.
So,
The person who brought the information is white.
So, another thing too, maybe the other person then maybe is not aware of the race, the black and white, the incident that happened in the past. They are not aware of it, so that's why they were not culturally aware of what might have happened or what could be termed racist or not. So that's why maybe they just went on saying things that were offensive, but they didn't know that they were offensive and they just are saying.
okay, do you have any personal example, like, of where you have probably done something to someone who was from another culture, but you didn't do it intentionally, but just because of the way you think?
Yeah, because in this culture, when the people enter you're in a room or in the office or whatever, they expect you to tell them hello, they who come. In our culture, if you go there, you tell them hello, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that example or?
Yeah, so which means if you are in this culture, you need to begin to think
That when you come in, say
reflectively.
hello, but we are not really supposed to say hello. If we didn't say hello, the few, it's the cross-cultural thing. They also expect, they don't care. Anybody can say hello, right? But for us, I think if I'm wrong, you tell me. In Africa, when we meet people, we are the one to tell them hello, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody's coming in, we can't be the one to tell them hello, even though we cross the line. So if that's our boss, but the person who's coming in usually says hello to the group.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I know I'm from Liberia, from Maryland County in Liberia, in the southeast of Liberia. And according to the Grable tribe we are from, when I meet you here, the greeting is now weird. I'm only here, so I meet you. I meet you. So I meet you here. So I'm the one supposed to salute you. I meet you here, and then you say welcome. So that means culturally, when you enter, when you arrive somewhere, you greet the people, and then in return they greet you. That's the culture on that side. And so if you are not aware of that practice, and maybe you find yourself there, or you are here, and then as you said, people here expect you, the group that they met, to greet them instead of you greeting the group that you met, and that is something that could be a conflict too. And you shall have to be aware that people have cultural difference left.
Okay, we got 30 seconds.
The way I look at it, looking at it from that perspective, we from Africa usually greet people when we meet them. But on the other hand, the people here, they don't even care whether you greet them or not. So we need to adapt to that kind of behavior, that whether you greet the person, it doesn't mean anything to them. So you shouldn't be taking
Your
it, you know, like taking it to have anger against them while they're not, I mean, they're not answering. Some of them, even if you greet them, they don't even
answer.
they don't even answer. So we should, know that that's their way of thinking. I mean, it's not important to say how you doing. Some of them say, "What good about this day?" They tell you all of that. What is good in this morning?
Okay, so we're gonna stop here. The guy who brought up, before I show the next video, the guy who brought up all of this idea about reflective thinking is the guy who you see there, John Dewey. He's the one, he's a philosopher, revolutionary thinker who actually revolutionized education, but you can read more about it. I just wanted to give you a little background on him. He says reflective thinkers need to be willing to explore, they need to be curious, they need to be assertive, they need to be risk takers in order for them to gain self-awareness, self-knowledge, and new understandings of the world. You cannot just be thinking in a box. We're going to show here the second video, and then you're going to take that self-test. So let me put the video on, and then we're going to take the self-test.
The Cultural Competence Self-Test is intended to heighten the awareness and sensitivity of personnel to the importance of cultural and linguistic competence in health and human service settings. It provides concrete examples of the kinds of beliefs, attitudes, values, and practices that foster cultural and linguistic competence. There is no answer key with correct responses. The following self-assessment can assist JCPS staff in identifying how they might improve the quality of their services to our culturally diverse student population. Please enter A, B, or C for each of the following items. A, things I do frequently. B, things I do occasionally. C, things I do rarely or never. Let's start with communication style. When interacting with individuals and families who have limited English proficiency, I always keep in mind that limitations in English proficiency are in no way a reflection of their level of intellectual functioning. Their limited ability to speak the language of the dominant culture has no bearing on their ability to communicate effectively in their language of origin. They may or may not be literate in their language of origin or English. For individuals and families who speak languages or dialects other than English, I attempt to learn and use key words in their language. The next section is on values and attitudes. I avoid imposing values that may conflict or be inconsistent with those cultures of ethnic groups other than my own. I intervene in an appropriate manner when I observe other staff engaging in behaviors that show cultural insensitivity, racial biases, and prejudice. I recognize and accept that individuals from culturally diverse backgrounds may desire varying degrees to adopt their beliefs and behaviors within the dominant culture. I understand and accept that family is defined differently by different cultures. For example, extended family members, grandparents, aunts, uncles, or godparents. I accept and respect that male-female roles may vary significantly among different cultures and ethnic groups. For example, who makes major decisions for the family? I understand that age and life cycle factors must be considered in interactions with individuals and families. An example, high value is placed on the decision of elders, the role of the eldest male or female in families, or roles and the expectation of children within the family. I recognize that the meaning or value of medical treatment and health education may vary greatly among cultures.
Someone in the back.
I accept that religion and other beliefs may have a major influence on individual and family beliefs and attitudes. I seek information from individuals, families, or other key community informants that will assist me in my role in JCPS to respond to the needs and preferences of culturally and ethnically diverse groups that I serve. I seek information on acceptable behaviors, courtesies, customs, and expectations that are unique to the culturally and ethnically diverse student population groups that I serve daily. I keep abreast of the major concerns and issues for ethnically and racially diverse populations residing in the geographical locale that JCPS serves. I am aware of the socioeconomic and environmental risk factors that contribute to the major social problems of culturally, ethnically, and racially diverse populations in Metro Louisville. I am well versed in the most current and proven practices and interventions to address behavioral problems in my school. I avail myself to professional development and training to enhance my knowledge and skills about culturally, ethnically, racially, and linguistically diverse groups. If you frequently responded C, you should work to improve your communication style and understanding of beliefs, attitudes, values, and practices that promote cultural and linguistic competence.
Okay, I'm gonna go through it quickly, and then we can, okay, it's a cultural competence self-test. It's intended to heighten the awareness and sensitivity of you, okay, to the importance of cultural and linguistic competence in health and human service settings. It provides concrete examples of the kinds of beliefs, attitudes, values, and practices that foster cultural and linguistic competence. There is no answer key with correct response to it. If you look at it, you see A, B, and C. Okay, so what we need to do now, I'm not going to go through it completely, but you people are going to go into two groups, the two of you over there and two people here, and just discuss it quickly between yourselves and just talk to each other and find out why you answered the question the way you answered it, okay? And I'll take a few minutes to do that.
Communication
Okay,
style.
so communication style.
Acting with individuals and families who have
So
limited
when you think
English
acting with
proficiency are
individuals
always
and
different.
family who have limited English proficiency,
What did you put?
I always keep
That
in
what-
mind that
Expression of that.
What answer?
For A,
No,
some
that
issue-
A.
you should do that frequent.
English
I have
proficiency
AC.
That is,
in no way
yeah,
fashion
it's
to
a things I
that.
do frequently. Okay.
So,
A here, you got it.
So let's know the frequent answer that you came up with, because you got to tell us
Why?
the frequent answer as a group.
the frequent answer?
The frequent answer, what is it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we
It's
gotta say why?
No, you just
Oh, okay.
note which one was frequent.
So, okay,
Question number 2 on the back.
how many A's?
Communication style. One is acting with individual and family who have limited. Same question.
No, that the back of it, where you got,
Things you do,
where you got to the back of the
things
question
that
like
you
that?
But I think question in the back, right?
how do you
One is acting with
Well,
family who have limited English.
Oh, no.
proficiency. They are
When you are
limited, they are
dealing
limited ability
Limitations
to
in
speak.
English
limitation
proficiency
in English
are
proficiency?
in no way, they were
In no
here.
Or
way.
since they are limited ability to speak the
Limited
language of the dominant culture
Has no
has no
bearing on
bearing
their
on the ability to communicate
function.
effectively in their language of origin.
You got A, what you got A, B, C, what you
I
got?
got A.
I got A too. Okay. So the-
Okay, I think that's my house.
so,
So the second one, the third one.
okay, what you got?
They,
We gotta be reading it with
okay, I got 8 kids.
I got be in it.
Okay, they may or may not be literate in their language of origin or any other. They got B.
Okay, there's someone in the group. We're gonna stop right here. Okay, what was the frequent answer from you guys? Anybody?
Number one.
No, just
Just test.
all throughout the thing, what was your frequent answer? Was it an A, was it a B, was it a C?
For us-
Which one is more frequent here?
For us, we have
Okay,
A.
and what does A say?
A say things you do
That
frequently.
This says,
Things I do frequently.
Things I do frequently.
Okay. Is that the same? Why did you come up with that answer? So discussion.
Well, I mean, as the answers explain, it said things that I do frequently. And if I take question 1, I say when interacting with individuals and family who have limited English proficiency, I always keep in mind. So I will do this all the time. That limitation in English proficiency are in no way a reflection of their level of intellectual functioning.
Well, suppose you are not an African. Were you gonna put A there?
Yeah, because it's from a general perspective.
we have from our experience with people. Even our family, there's some of them illiterate, but it doesn't mean that they are not intellectually,
Capable.
competent, So,
Okay, what about the other team? What was your frequent answer?
Yeah, for the same communication style, the first question is the same A that I came out with.
That was the frequent answer?
Yes.
Throughout the whole thing.
No, I'm talking about this
We
one.
did only the first week
No. First and second.
because we were still brainstorming on the other questions.
Okay. Okay, well, the frequent answer, actually, if you have been putting C all the time, which means you need to work on cultural competency, or you need to reflect more on the way we think. Okay, in trying to begin to wrap up, we
I
need
didn't
to.
understand that statement you made concerning the C.
Well, the C, this means you are. What does C say?
C says that things I
Rarely.
do
Things I rarely do. Most of the things that are there, if you say that are things that you rarely do, which means you don't think reflectively. You're just thinking from your own cultural background all the time. You meet someone from another place who doesn't speak English, where you think that he's stupid, which is not true. Or you meet somebody who you go into a house and you see like from most homes from Africa, you see the man in authority giving commands and all of that, Or Muslim home, I've gone to a place where the woman was on her knees crying to the husband. But, I mean, it was tough for me, but, I did not judge. I should be able to think reflectively. That's just what it's saying. So if you answer C most of the time, you need to develop your reflective thinking skills. Okay, any other questions before we go ahead here?
I'm good. I mean, I don't know.
Let's do it. Okay, so we see here that reflective thinking is active, persistent, careful consideration of any beliefs or supposed form of knowledge in light of the grounds that support it. That's what Dewey said. It doesn't mean because somebody thinks that way, you've never really thought that way, means that they are just out of, maybe they're crazy or something. So you should be careful and considering other people's beliefs. Also, in the second slide, we see that the reflective thinkers need to be, number one, what? Willing to explore. Then,
Curious,
then,
assertive,
then,
risk takers,
what, when you do all of that, what happens?
in order to gain self-awareness,
Self-awareness,
self-knowledge,
self-knowledge,
and new
understanding
understandings
Of the world, right? Why should we be related? He said to achieve professional artistry in everything that you do. If you think reflectively, you'll be able to dynamically. Even for us as ministers, some of us, or you're reading the Bible, you got to think from the perspective of the people who were writing, or from what they were. That is how you get revelation. Actually, you think from what they were, from their perspective. Okay, so your ability to cope with contradictions, paradoxes, and dilemmas. You should expect the unexpected and willing and able to examine what he or she already knows. You got to restructure your strategies, reframing the problem. You know, you can invent on the spot experiments and all of these things. And then that's in a nutshell what reflective thinking is. I think there's an Aboriginal parable that says that if you come to help me out of a situation, then I don't need you. But if you come to understand the situation that I'm in, and that we can work together, then then we can make a better world. Okay. So these are the principles of reflective thinking. So after we have done this, before I wrap up, what are the things that you have learned just talking about this?
You must be able to think the way other people think. Reflective thinkers are people who think, the way other people think. They're not limited in their thinking.
Okay, anybody else? What have you been able
To be considerate about other people, how they feel. Be cautious.
in cultures? Yeah. You're culturally competent.
You gotta be culturally competent, you gotta apply empathy, so that you can understand people
From their perspective.
and be culturally aware that there are a variety of culture, and people react or speak depending on their culture.
Yeah. Are you always going to be comfortable in reflective thinking, in challenging yourself?
I like the one that says something about artistry and the effect it would have on the work, and how your view on the world would be different.
Okay.
I like that one.
Any other thoughts that came through your mind?
The more prominent thought that is striking in the whole class is that you have to be culturally aware, and that because somebody does not express themselves better in English or in the language of the town or the city or the country, doesn't mean that they don't know what they are doing, or they are not intelligent, or they are not intelligent potent.
Okay.
That's very important.
Okay, as we wrap up today, are there any questions, lingering questions that you have of this topic that we have discussed today? Any questions that the class may have?
Yeah, the cultural, I don't know what is questioning about statement, but this cultural thing, I think is really, really deep, and it's not a blanket thing like people from Africa have to do this, Hispanic. I think even a family can have their own culture. It might belong to this, the way they do things in their home. But I think it has a long way, a little bit still to go. Nobody will be able to really define it, but they have made a lot of progress to bring that awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why most people, even in a church, people disagree, right? It's because of the worldview of people, different ways of thinking about stuff or how they have been brought up. But for you people to work together, you got to be able to think from the perspective of what the other person is thinking, and you're not just, very adamant and not willing to, think reflectively. So anyway, in wrapping up, we said that this topic is reflective thinking, and we know and connecting it with how you can be competent in cultural issues, in cultural competence. So and I think we have been able to probably list 5 elements of reflective thinking, and then we have been able to describe probably 2 or 3 cultural beliefs and how to challenge them through reflective thinking, and provide one effective way of engaging someone from another culture through reflective thinking. Well, I thank you for your time, and I hope that as you leave this place, you'll be able to develop the way you think reflectively, especially when you engage people from other cultures, or maybe you trying to help people or talk to them who are from a different culture.